The bridge of the SC Jeger trembled as another volley of plasma fire erupted against her failing shields. Captain Thorn Calith gripped the command chair's armrests, his knuckles white against the worn leather, watching the tactical display paint their situation in unforgiving crimson. 27 enemy dreadnoughts surrounded them in a perfect sphere of death, their sleek obsidian hulls bristling with weapons that had already claimed half the human fleet. "Shield integrity at 18%, called out Commander Zara Voss from her station, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, redirecting power from non-essential systems, buying them precious seconds. The Jeger was humanity's last hope, the final vessel standing between the hegemony armada and Earth itself. Through the massive viewport, the stars wheeled slowly as the ship's damaged gyroscope struggled to maintain orientation. In the distance, Thorn could see the blue-white glow of Sol, impossibly small and fragile from this distance. 3 billion souls called that system home, unaware that their fate hung by the thinnest of threads in the cold vacuum of space. "Dr. Nakamura, status report on Amaterasu's Blueshift," Thorn commanded, turning toward the science station where a slight woman with silver-streaked hair worked frantically over a device that seemed to bend light around itself. Dr. Yuki Nakamura had spent the last 5 years developing the theoretical framework for what many considered impossible, and now humanity's survival depended on her genius. "The quantum resonance cascade is stabilizing, Captain," she replied, sweat beading on her forehead despite the bridge's climate control. "But I need 12 more minutes to complete the synchronization sequence. The exotic matter matrix has to align perfectly with the local gravitational field, or we'll tear a hole in spacetime itself." Ensign Raven Blackthorn, barely 22 and fresh from the academy before the war changed everything, looked up from her pilot's console with wide eyes. "Sir, the hegemony ships are moving into final attack formation. They're preparing for a concentrated assault." Her voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too much death in too few years. The enemy had been methodical in their conquest of the galaxy, their crystalline technology far surpassing anything humanity had developed. World after world had fallen to their emotionless advance, entire civilizations reduced to glowing slag in their wake. But they had underestimated human ingenuity, the peculiar talent that had allowed a young species to spread across the stars in mere centuries. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov's voice crackled over the comm system, thick with his native Russian accent and strain from working in the ship's damaged sections. "Captain, I've rerouted power from the port plasma conduits. We have enough energy for one more major system activation, but after that, we'll be running on reserve power only." Thorn closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command settle heavier on his shoulders. He thought of his daughter Sarah, safe in the underground cities of Mars, and of all the children who would never know the beauty of an open sky if they failed here. When he opened his eyes, his gaze found each of his officers in turn, seeing the same desperate determination reflected in their faces. "The hegemony thinks they've won," he said quietly, his voice carrying clearly despite the distant rumble of impacts against their hull. "They believe that superior technology guarantees victory. But they've never fought humans before, not really. They don't understand what we're capable of when everything we love is at stake." Dr. Nakamura looked up from her calculations, her dark eyes reflecting the strange aurora patterns that danced around her experimental device. "Captain, if this works, it will change everything. Not just the outcome of this battle, but our understanding of the universe itself. The theoretical implications alone." "We'll have to wait for another day," Thorn interrupted gently. "Right now, we focus on survival." He activated the ship-wide communication system, his voice reaching every corridor and compartment of the massive vessel. "All hands, this is the captain. In 10 minutes, we're going to show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Stand ready." The SC Jeger continued its defiant dance through space, her weapons still firing even as her armor plating began to buckle under the relentless assault. Behind them, Earth's sun burned with ancient light, waiting to learn whether its children would live to see another dawn. 3 years earlier, humanity had received its first message from beyond the stars. Dr. Nakamura remembered standing in the pristine white corridors of the Geneva Observatory, her hands trembling as she held the decoded transmission. The mathematical proof of the hegemony's existence had been elegant in its simplicity, a series of prime numbers that could only have been generated by an advanced intelligence. First contact protocols had been established for decades, but no one had prepared for the second message that arrived 6 months later. Where the first had been a peaceful greeting, the second was an ultimatum delivered with chilling precision. The hegemony declared humanity a temporal anomaly that threatened the stability of local spacetime, a young species that had developed faster than their predictive models allowed. Commander Voss had been a lieutenant colonel in the Mars Defense Force when the third message arrived, not transmitted through space but delivered by the sudden appearance of a kilometer-long crystalline vessel in Earth's orbit. She remembered watching the news feeds from her barracks, seeing the impossible ship that seemed to bend light around its faceted hull like a prism made of stars. The vessel had transmitted a single word in perfect Earth standard: compliance. When the United Earth government requested clarification, the ship had responded by demonstrating its weapons on the uninhabited moon of Europa. The ice world had simply ceased to exist, its matter converted to energy in a flash that outshone Jupiter for 3 full seconds. Captain Calith had been commanding a deep space exploration vessel when the hegemony's true fleet revealed itself. Emerging from what appeared to be folded space, dozens of ships had materialized at the edge of every inhabited system simultaneously. Their message was consistent across all worlds: humanity had 72 standard hours to surrender unconditionally or face corrective extinction. The galaxy had watched in silence as humanity's response echoed across the comm networks. President Chen's words had been simple: we choose to stand. Within hours, every human world had begun mobilizing for war, a species-wide determination that surprised even Earth's own leaders. Manufacturing centers switched to military production, scientists abandoned peaceful research for weapons development, and civilians volunteered for service in numbers that overwhelmed recruitment centers. Ensign Blackthorne had been a freshman at the Luna City University when the first hegemony attack came. She remembered the way the artificial gravity had flickered as massive enemy ships materialized in the L4 Lagrange point, their arrival sending gravitational waves through the local spacetime. The evacuation sirens had wailed across the domed city as transport ships lifted off in desperate waves, racing to reach the safety of the inner system. The hegemony's technology was indeed superior, their weapons capable of disrupting matter at the quantum level, their shields able to deflect anything humanity could deploy. But they had made a critical error in their assessment of human nature. They had calculated military capabilities and industrial output, but they had failed to account for the peculiar human talent for innovation under pressure. Chief Engineer Volkov had been part of the team that reverse-engineered the first hegemony wreckage, a destroyer that had been damaged by a desperate kamikaze attack near Ganymede. Working around the clock in the hidden research facility beneath Olympus Mons, human scientists had begun to unravel the secrets of crystalline technology, discovering principles that would have taken centuries to develop through conventional research. Dr. Nakamura's breakthrough had come during the siege of Proxima Centauri, when she had observed how hegemony weapons interacted with the system's binary star. The enemy's quantum disruptors created minute distortions in local spacetime, effects that should have been impossible according to human physics. But by studying these anomalies, she had begun to understand the fundamental nature of what the hegemony called reality engineering. The war had raged for 3 years, humanity falling back system by system, world by world. But with each defeat, human understanding grew. Captured technology was studied, new weapons developed, and gradually, impossibly, the gap began to narrow. The hegemony, for their part, seemed increasingly puzzled by humanity's refusal to acknowledge defeat, their ability to adapt and overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Now, as the SC Jeger faced the final hegemony fleet, all of that accumulated knowledge and sacrifice had been condensed into a single experimental device. Amaterasu's Blueshift represented not just Dr. Nakamura's genius, but the combined effort of an entire species that had refused to surrender to the inevitable. The bridge lights flickered as another barrage struck their shields, and Captain Calith found himself wondering if they had learned enough, if human ingenuity would prove sufficient against an enemy that had conquered galaxies. In 8 minutes, they would have their answer. Dr. Nakamura's fingers moved with practiced precision across the quantum resonance controls, each adjustment calculated to the picosecond. The device at the heart of Amaterasu's Blueshift defied conventional physics, its core containing a fragment of matter that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. She had named it after the ancient Japanese sun goddess because it quite literally held the power of a star, compressed into a crystalline matrix no larger than her fist. The exotic matter is responding to gravitational fluctuations, she reported, watching readouts that would have been incomprehensible to Earth's greatest scientists just a decade ago. Captain, the hegemony ships are generating massive gravitational distortions with their formation. It's actually helping to stabilize our quantum field. Commander Voss looked up from her tactical display, where red dots continued to converge on their position. They're trying to create a gravity well to prevent us from escaping to FTL. Standard hegemony doctrine for finishing off disabled vessels. Her analysis was delivered with clinical detachment, but Thorne could see the tension in her jaw muscles, the way her hands remained steady through pure force of will. The enemy's strategy made perfect sense from their perspective. The SC Jeger appeared to be a crippled vessel, her weapons nearly depleted and her shields failing. But the hegemony couldn't know about the device hidden in the ship's core, the result of humanity's most desperate gamble with the fundamental forces of the universe. Ensign Blackthorn's voice carried a note of wonder as she studied her navigation console. "Sir, the gravitational readings are off the charts. It's like space itself is being stretched around us. How are we not being torn apart by tidal forces?" "Because space isn't actually being stretched," Dr. Nakamura explained, never taking her eyes off her instruments. "The hegemony ships are using localized dimensional folding to create the appearance of a gravity well. It's an illusion, but one that affects our sensors and navigation systems. Brilliant, really, except it's giving us exactly the dimensional instability we need for Amaterasu's Blueshift." Chief Engineer Volkov's voice echoed from the engineering section, transmitted through the ship's internal comm system. "Doctor, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations in the quantum containment field. The exotic matter is becoming increasingly active. How much longer can we maintain containment?" 7 minutes, Nakamura replied, making another microscopic adjustment to the resonance frequency. "After that, the matter will either achieve dimensional phase lock, or it will collapse into a quantum singularity and take us all with it." Captain Calith felt the familiar weight of impossible decisions. Throughout the war, humanity had been forced to gamble with forces beyond their understanding, pushing the boundaries of science in ways that would have been unthinkable during peacetime. The survivors called it the human edge, the willingness to attempt the impossible when all conventional options had been exhausted. The tactical display showed the hegemony ships adjusting their formation, their crystalline hulls reflecting the distant starlight like a constellation of deadly prisms. Admiral Kekstar, the hegemony fleet commander, had been responsible for the destruction of 17 human colonies. His tactical genius was legendary even among enemy forces. His ability to predict and counter human strategies had earned him the grudging respect of Earth's military leaders. "Incoming transmission from the hegemony flagship," Commander Voss announced, her finger hovering over the communication controls. "They're requesting our surrender." "Put them through," Thorne ordered, knowing that every second of delay brought them closer to Dr. Nakamura's deadline. The main viewscreen shimmered, revealing the interior of a hegemony command center. Admiral Kekstar appeared as a vaguely humanoid figure composed of shifting crystalline formations, his form refracting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When he spoke, his voice carried the harmonic resonance of wind chimes in a storm. "Captain Calith of the vessel SC Jeger," the alien commander said, each word precisely articulated despite the alien nature of his speech organs. "Your resistance has been noted and catalogued. Surrender now, and your crew will be granted the honor of quick termination. Continue this futile gesture, and we will be forced to demonstrate why the hegemony has conquered 12 galaxies." Thorne stood slowly, every eye on the bridge focused on him. Through the viewport behind him, Earth's sun continued to burn with steady light, a beacon of hope in the cosmic darkness. "Admiral Kekstar," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's defiance, "you've made one critical error in your calculations." The crystalline figure tilted its head in what might have been curiosity. "Explain." "You assume that superior technology guarantees victory. But you've never faced a species that treats the impossible as merely another engineering problem to solve." Thorn's smile was grim but determined. "We don't know how to surrender, Admiral. It's not in our nature." Kekstar's form shifted, patterns of light flowing through his crystalline structure in what might have been amusement. "Then you will share the fate of all who oppose the natural order. Weapons, prepare for final bombardment." The transmission ended, and Dr. Nakamura looked up from her controls with eyes that reflected the strange aurora surrounding her device. "Captain, quantum phase lock achieved. Amaterasu's Blueshift is ready for activation." Her voice carried a mixture of scientific triumph and deep sorrow. "But sir, there's something you need to know about the activation sequence." The terrible beauty of Dr. Nakamura's explanation settled over the bridge like a shroud. Amaterasu's Blueshift wasn't just a weapon or a defensive system, it was something far more profound and dangerous. The device would create a localized dimensional cascade, essentially folding spacetime in ways that would render the hegemony's weapons useless while simultaneously broadcasting a signal across the galaxy that would forever change how humanity was perceived by other species. "The quantum resonance will propagate faster than light," Nakamura continued, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was describing. "Every advanced civilization within 50,000 light-years will detect the dimensional ripple. They'll know that humanity has achieved mastery over spacetime itself." Commander Voss understood the implications immediately. "It's not just about winning this battle. It's about announcing to the galaxy that we're no longer a young species to be dismissed or conquered." "But there's a cost," Dr. Nakamura added quietly, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared the final activation sequence. "The dimensional fold requires a conscious observer to maintain stability. Someone has to remain linked to the quantum matrix throughout the entire process. The neural feedback will be significant." Captain Calith felt the pieces falling into place, understanding why his brilliant chief scientist had been so reluctant to explain the full details of her creation. "You're saying someone has to die to make this work?" "Not die, exactly," Nakamura corrected, though her expression suggested the distinction was academic. "Transcend might be a better term. The observer's consciousness will be integrated into the dimensional matrix, becoming part of the quantum field that maintains the fold. They'll exist on a level that's beyond human comprehension." Ensign Blackthorn looked up from her console, her young face pale but determined. "How long do we have before the hegemony fleet opens fire?" 2 minutes, 30 seconds, Voss replied, watching the tactical display as enemy weapons began to glow with gathering energy. "All ships are charging their primary disruptors for a synchronized bombardment." Chief Engineer Volkov's voice crackled through the comm system, urgent and concerned. "Captain, I'm detecting massive power fluctuations throughout the ship. The quantum containment field is destabilizing. We need to activate the device now, or lose the opportunity forever." Thorn found himself facing the kind of decision that had defined humanity throughout the war, the willingness to sacrifice everything for the chance to protect what they loved. He looked around the bridge at faces that had become more than crew, more than fellow officers. They were family, bound together by shared purpose and the knowledge that they represented the last hope of their species. "I'll do it," Dr. Nakamura said quietly, her hand hovering over the neural interface controls. "It's my device, my responsibility. And honestly, I'm the only one who fully understands the quantum mechanics involved." "Like hell," Ensign Blackthorn interjected, rising from her station with surprising authority. "Doctor, you're needed to monitor the dimensional cascade and make adjustments if something goes wrong. I'll take the neural link." "Raven, you're barely out of the academy," Commander Voss protested, but the young pilot's expression was resolute. Which means I have the least to lose, Blackthorn replied with a sad smile. No family, no children waiting for me. And I've always been good with quantum navigation systems. My neural patterns might actually be more compatible with the Matrix than anyone else's. Captain Calith felt the weight of command pressing down like the gravity of a collapsing star. Every instinct screamed against allowing someone so young to make such a sacrifice, but tactical necessity overrode emotional objection. Raven was right about her qualifications, and they were rapidly running out of time. 1 minute to enemy bombardment, Voss announced, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Dr. Nakamura began the preliminary activation sequence, her instruments filling the bridge with an ethereal blue glow that seemed to bend light around itself. The quantum field is stabilizing. Neural interface ready for connection. Ensign Blackthorn moved to the interface station with steady steps, though Thorn could see the fear she was trying to hide. She placed her hands on the neural conductors, metallic filaments that would link her consciousness directly to the exotic matter core. Captain, it's been an honor serving with you all. The honor has been ours, Ensign, Thorn replied, his voice thick with emotion he couldn't suppress. Raven, what you're doing here will be remembered for as long as humanity exists among the stars. The young pilot nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Tell them we didn't surrender. Tell them we chose to stand, even when standing meant. She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. 30 seconds to bombardment, Commander Voss called out, watching the tactical display as 27 enemy dreadnoughts prepared to unleash destruction that would vaporize the SC Jeger and everything aboard her. Dr. Nakamura's hands danced over the final controls, bringing Amaterasu's Blueshift to the threshold of activation. Neural interface established. Quantum resonance at optimal frequency. Ready for dimensional cascade on your command, Captain. Thorn looked out at the stars one final time, thinking of Earth's blue skies and the children who would inherit them. Do it, he commanded. Show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Ensign Blackthorn closed her eyes and pressed her palms firmly against the neural conductors. The bridge erupted in impossible light as space-time itself began to fold around them, and the last battle of the Galactic War entered its final, miraculous phase. The moment Ensign Blackthorn's consciousness merged with the quantum matrix, reality itself seemed to exhale. The bridge of the SC Jeger became a cathedral of living light, where physics bent and twisted into configurations that human minds had never been meant to comprehend. Through the neural link, Raven's awareness expanded beyond the confines of her body, touching the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Dr. Nakamura watched her instruments with a mixture of scientific fascination and deep sorrow as the dimensional cascade began to propagate outward from their position. The exotic matter core was performing exactly as her theoretical models had predicted, creating a localized fold in spacetime that would render conventional physics temporarily inoperative within a sphere roughly 3 million kilometers in diameter. Dimensional fold propagating at the speed of causality, she reported, her voice barely audible over the harmonic resonance that now filled the bridge. The hegemony fleet is being caught in the effect zone. Captain Calith gripped his command chair as the SC Jeger rode the wavefront of distorted spacetime like a ship navigating impossible tides. Through the viewport, he could see the enemy fleet's formation beginning to distort as their vessels encountered the edge of the dimensional fold. The crystalline ships, so perfectly adapted to normal space, suddenly found themselves operating in an environment where their superior technology meant nothing. Commander Voss studied her tactical display with growing amazement. Sir, the hegemony weapons are failing to maintain coherence. Their disruptor beams are being scattered by the dimensional instability. It's like their shots are hitting a wall made of folded space. The effect was even more dramatic than Dr. Nakamura had dared to hope. The hegemony ships, accustomed to dominating through technological superiority, suddenly found themselves vulnerable in ways their computers couldn't calculate or predict. Their quantum disruptors, designed to operate in normal spacetime, became useless when space itself refused to behave according to known physics. Through the neural link, Ensign Blackthorn experienced existence on levels that transcended human understanding. Her consciousness flowed through dimensions that existed perpendicular to normal space, touching the quantum foam that underlied reality itself. She could feel the hegemony ships struggling against the dimensional tide, their crews panicking as systems that had never failed before suddenly became inoperative. "The cascade is achieving maximum propagation," Dr. Nakamura announced, though her voice seemed to come from very far away. "Dimensional fold stable across the entire tactical sphere. Quantum resonance holding steady." Chief Engineer Volkov's report from the engineering section carried notes of wonder and disbelief. "Captain, our own systems are being affected, but in beneficial ways. The dimensional fold is actually strengthening our hull integrity and boosting our weapon efficiency. It's as if the universe itself is tilting in our favor." Admiral Kekstar's flagship, the pride of the hegemony fleet, found itself caught in a pocket of space where the normal rules no longer applied. The crystalline vessel's attempts to realign its weapons met with failure as targeting systems designed for three-dimensional combat became useless in an environment where space folded back on itself in impossible ways. The alien commander's transmission cut through the dimensional static, his harmonic voice now carrying undertones of confusion and growing alarm. "What have you done? Our instruments indicate massive distortions in local spacetime. This level of reality manipulation should be impossible for your species." Captain Calith found he could still communicate despite the exotic conditions surrounding them. "We told you, Admiral. Humanity doesn't recognize the word impossible. We prefer to think of it as a challenge to overcome." Through her expanded awareness, Ensign Blackthorn could sense the shock and disbelief rippling through the hegemony fleet. These beings had conquered 12 galaxies by maintaining technological superiority over every species they encountered. The idea that a young race like humanity could manipulate spacetime itself challenged their fundamental understanding of cosmic hierarchy. But the dimensional fold was more than just a tactical advantage. As Dr. Nakamura had predicted, the quantum resonance was propagating outward faster than light, carrying with it a message that would reach every advanced civilization within 50,000 light-years. The signal was unmistakable: humanity had achieved mastery over the fundamental forces of the universe. Detecting response signals from distant star systems, Commander Voss reported, her instruments picking up the far-flung echoes of the dimensional cascade. "Multiple civilizations are acknowledging the quantum resonance. They know something unprecedented has happened here." The political implications were staggering. Throughout the galaxy, species that had remained neutral during the human hegemony conflict would now have to reconsider their positions. A race capable of manipulating spacetime was not one that could be ignored or dismissed. Humanity had just announced its arrival as a galactic power in the most dramatic way possible. Through the neural link, Raven could feel the strain of maintaining the dimensional fold beginning to take its toll. Her consciousness was being stretched across multiple dimensions, her human mind adapting to perspectives that no biological entity was meant to experience. But she held on, understanding that the fate of her species depended on her ability to maintain the quantum matrix for just a few more critical minutes. The hegemony fleet, trapped in folded space and unable to bring their weapons to bear, began to withdraw from the engagement zone. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they had encountered a force they could neither understand nor overcome. The psychological impact was as devastating as any physical weapon humanity might have deployed. Captain Calith watched the enemy retreat with a mixture of triumph and profound sadness. They had won, but the cost was almost too heavy to bear. Through the strange light filling the bridge, he could see Ensign Blackthorn's form beginning to fade, her consciousness merging more completely with the dimensional matrix that held their victory in place. The withdrawal of the hegemony fleet began slowly, almost tentatively, as Admiral Kekstar's ships tested the boundaries of the dimensional fold. Each vessel that attempted to cross the threshold of distorted spacetime found itself forced back by forces that defied their most advanced understanding of physics. The crystalline hulls, so beautiful and deadly in normal space, appeared fragmented and uncertain within the quantum maze that Ensign Blackthorn maintained through sheer force of will. Dr. Nakamura's instruments registered readings that should have been impossible, measurements that rewrote fundamental constants of the universe within their localized pocket of folded reality. The quantum matrix is holding, but I'm detecting increasing strain on the neural interface, she reported, her eyes never leaving the biometric displays that showed Raven's vital signs fluctuating in patterns no human had ever experienced. Through the neural link, Ensign Blackthorn existed simultaneously in 17 dimensions, her consciousness stretched across planes of existence that intersected with normal spacetime at impossible angles. She could perceive the hegemony ships not as solid objects but as probability clouds, quantum uncertainties that her expanded awareness could manipulate by simply observing them in specific ways. The enemy fleet is moving to minimum safe distance, Commander Voss announced, though her definition of safe had been fundamentally altered by the dimensional cascade. Admiral Kekstar is requesting a parley. He wants to discuss terms. Captain Calith felt a grim satisfaction at the unprecedented nature of their situation. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the hegemony was asking for negotiations rather than demanding surrender. The implications rippled outward like the quantum resonance itself, carrying news of humanity's transformation to civilizations across known space. The main viewscreen shimmered as Admiral Kekstar's transmission reached them through the dimensional distortion. The alien commander's crystalline form appeared more fragmented than before, his harmonic voice carrying undertones that might have been uncertainty or even fear. Captain Calith, your species has demonstrated capabilities that exceed our predictive matrices. The Hegemony Council requires clarification of your intentions. Our intentions haven't changed, Admiral, Thorne replied, standing before the viewscreen with the impossible aurora of folded space dancing behind him. We want to exist in peace, to explore the galaxy and contribute to the greater cosmic community. The same thing we wanted when you first demanded our surrender. Kekstar's form shifted, patterns of light flowing through his structure in configurations that Dr. Nakamura recognized as indicating deep contemplation. The ability to manipulate dimensional structure implies technological advancement beyond our initial assessments. The hegemony cannot continue hostilities against a species capable of reality engineering. Through her expanded consciousness, Raven could sense the broader implications of their victory spreading across the galaxy like ripples in a cosmic pond. Distant civilizations that had observed the conflict from afar were now transmitting messages of recognition and respect. Humanity had not merely won a battle, they had fundamentally altered their position in the galactic hierarchy. But the strain of maintaining the dimensional fold was becoming unbearable. Ensign Blackthorn's human consciousness was being gradually absorbed into the quantum matrix, her individual identity dissolving into something larger and more abstract. She could feel herself becoming part of the dimensional structure itself, a necessary component in the exotic physics that held their victory in place. Captain, Dr. Nakamura said quietly, her voice heavy with sorrow and scientific fascination, the neural interface is approaching critical threshold. Ensign Blackthorn's consciousness is becoming fully integrated with the quantum matrix. In approximately 3 minutes, the process will be irreversible. Chief Engineer Volkov's voice crackled through the comm system, carrying urgent concern. The dimensional fold is requiring increasing amounts of exotic matter to maintain stability. We're approaching the limits of our containment system. Captain Calith faced the hardest decision of his career. They could release the dimensional fold and return to normal space, but doing so would free the hegemony fleet to resume their attack. The exotic matter core would still provide them with advanced weapons and defensive capabilities, but nothing that could guarantee victory against such overwhelming odds. Or they could maintain the fold long enough to force a formal treaty, ensuring that humanity's newfound status as a dimensional engineering species would be recognized throughout the galaxy. But that choice would cost them Ensign Blackthorn, whose consciousness was already becoming something beyond human understanding. Through the neural link, Raven's voice reached them one final time, though it seemed to echo from vast distances across folded space. Captain, I can see the probability streams. If we maintain the fold for 7 more minutes, Admiral Kekstar will be forced to sign a formal ceasefire. The Hegemony Council is already debating humanity's new classification status. Raven, Thorn said, his voice breaking with emotion, you don't have to do this. We can find another way. No, sir, came the reply, though her voice now carried harmonics that no human throat could produce. This is the way. I can see it across all possible timelines. Humanity's future among the stars begins here, with this choice. With my choice. Dr. Nakamura's instruments registered the final phase transition as Ensign Blackthorn's consciousness completed its integration with the dimensional matrix. Her physical form began to fade from the bridge, becoming translucent as her essence merged with the quantum field that held spacetime in its impossible configuration. Admiral Kekstar's transmission returned, his harmonic voice now carrying formal recognition protocols. Captain Calith, the Hegemony Council hereby acknowledges humanity as a Class 1 dimensional engineering species. We propose immediate cessation of hostilities and the establishment of formal diplomatic relations. Through the view screen, they could see the Hegemony fleet's crystalline ships beginning to power down their weapon systems, their hulls reflecting the strange light of folded space like prisms refracting the birth of a new age. Humanity had achieved the impossible, but the cost would haunt them forever. 6 months after the Battle of Soul's Edge, Captain Thorn Calith stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Blackthorn Station, watching ships from a dozen different species dock at humanity's first diplomatic outpost. The station orbited Earth at the exact coordinates where the SC Jeger had made its final stand, a monument to sacrifice and the price of survival among the stars. The dimensional fold had collapsed exactly 7 minutes and 38 seconds after Ensign Blackthorn's consciousness fully integrated with the quantum matrix, but that brief window had been enough to secure humanity's future. Admiral Kekstar had signed the Treaty of Dimensional Recognition, formally acknowledging human sovereignty and establishing the species as a major galactic power. The Hegemony, for their part, had withdrawn to their core territories, their expansionist policies forever altered by the knowledge that they were no longer the galaxy's dominant technological force. Dr. Nakamura approached from the station's research laboratory, her hair now completely silver but her eyes still bright with scientific curiosity. The latest quantum resonance readings are remarkable, she said, handing Thorn a data pad displaying patterns that would have been incomprehensible just a year ago. The dimensional cascade created permanent alterations in local spacetime. The area around Earth now exhibits enhanced quantum stability, making faster-than-light travel more efficient for any species that visits our system. Through the observation port, they could see the memorial gardens that had been constructed on the station's outer ring. At the center stood a monument to Ensign Raven Blackthorn, though her name was engraved in 17 different dimensional scripts, each one visible only when viewed from specific quantum angles. She had become something beyond human understanding, her consciousness now part of the fundamental structure of spacetime itself. Commander Voss, now promoted to Admiral and serving as Earth's primary diplomatic liaison, joined them at the viewport. The Centauri Republic just transmitted their acceptance of the Mutual Defense Pact, she reported. That makes 23 species that have formally allied with humanity since the battle. The political ramifications are still spreading across the galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humanity had gained the respect and alliance of dozens of civilizations not through conquest or intimidation, but by demonstrating their willingness to sacrifice everything for the principles they believed in. The dimensional cascade had announced to the galaxy that humans were a species capable of reshaping reality itself, but the true message had been far more profound. This was a race that would choose transcendence over surrender, unity over division. Chief Engineer Volkov's voice carried over the station's communication system, as warm and familiar as it had been aboard the Jeger. Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. The quantum resonance is still propagating outward, now reaching civilizations in the Andromeda galaxy. It seems our message of defiance has become something of a galactic legend. Thorn smiled sadly, remembering the young pilot who had given everything to make this moment possible. Any word from the Dimensional Monitoring Project? Dr. Nakamura's expression grew thoughtful. The instruments detect periodic fluctuations in the quantum field around Earth, patterns that seem almost intentional. As if someone is trying to communicate through dimensional manipulation. The mathematics are consistent with a consciousness that exists across multiple planes of reality. The possibility that some essence of Raven Blackthorn still existed within the dimensional matrix was both comforting and heartbreaking. She had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a human consciousness that existed as part of the fundamental structure of the universe itself. Whether she retained any individual awareness was a question that might never be answered. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission from the surface. President Chen's image appeared on the nearest display, her expression carrying the weight of leading a species that had recently discovered its place among the cosmic community. Captain Calith, the Galactic Council has extended a formal invitation for humanity to join as a founding member of the New Dimensional Engineering Coalition. It seems your victory has inspired other species to develop their own reality manipulation technologies. The long-term implications were staggering. Humanity had not just won a war, they had fundamentally altered the direction of galactic civilization. The knowledge that dimensional engineering was possible had spread to hundreds of species, spurring a renaissance of scientific discovery that promised to transform the galaxy itself. As Thorn watched the stars whirl slowly beyond the viewport, he reflected on the price of their victory. The war had cost humanity billions of lives across dozens of worlds, but it had also revealed the species' greatest strength, their refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. The dimensional cascade had been more than a weapon, it had been a declaration that humanity would forge its own path among the stars, regardless of the cost. The memorial to Ensign Blackthorn pulsed with a soft, blue-white light that seemed to come from dimensions beyond normal space. Whether it was a sign of her continued existence or simply the residual effects of the quantum matrix, Thorn chose to believe it was her way of saying goodbye and hello simultaneously, goodbye to the young pilot she had been, and hello to whatever she had become in the vast reaches of folded space-time. In the end, Amaterasu's Blueshift had given humanity exactly what Dr. Nakamura had promised, a future among the stars, paid for with sacrifice and sustained by the knowledge that some things were worth transcending humanity itself to protect. The last galactic war was over, but the first galactic peace had only just begun, built on the foundation of one young woman's willingness to become something greater than human for the sake of all humanity.